4 games, 4 wins, and is BYU a perfect team at this point? Absolutely not. But we learned on Saturday night that this team, they can battle through adversity.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider as your host here on this podcast, and as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Today's show, we're talking about BYU in Colorado. What did I take away after a second viewing of the tape? Well, I got a few thoughts on that, none more so than the fact that BYU showed they had some grit to them in battling back to pick up that win. Then we're going to get to our Big 12 stock report. Who's up, who's down across the conference? We'll dig into that. And later on today's show, a big official visit for BYU basketball and also a one-on-one chat with BYU prospect Bodie Sparrow, talking about his recruitment by the Cougars and others. It's all brought to you today by our friends over at FanDuel. New customers right now at FanDuel can bet just $5, and if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. Once again, that's courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel, or get started today in the FanDuel app. All right, so Saturday night, I was there at Folsom Field taking in the sights and sounds of a BYU game in person in the stands for the first time in quite some time, and I had a fun time. I will say that at the outset. Colorado fans, to me, overall, pretty gracious. Student section, well, maybe not so much, but I didn't run into many students on my trek to or from the stadium. Those I did encounter were fairly gracious about welcome to Colorado, welcome to Boulder, hope you enjoy Folsom Field, all the different things. But the one thing I learned about this BYU football program is that this is a team that can battle through adversity, because it looked like it was going to be a very long night in the first 10 minutes and change of this game, for most part the first quarter. Colorado came out and punched BYU square in the mouth. It was absolutely wild. Watching it in person and then rewatching it on tape, BYU was staggering. It absolutely, used the boxing analogy, they were staggering. And had Colorado had maybe another punch or two in them, they very well may have landed a knockout blow on the BYU Cougars. But to BYU's credit, they battled back in this game, and it started with the fact that BYU's defense had to get off the deck. Early on in this game, I saw defensive linemen going the wrong way, going against the assignments that appeared that they had on any given play. The biggest thing I took away is that BYU's defensive line looked wholly out of sorts when it came to how Colorado attacked them. I'm sure that they watched film. I've got no problem saying that they watched film, but Colorado had some new wrinkles to their blocking assignments. And I also think that Colorado's offensive line heard all the chatter about how bad they were in that Alamo Bowl game, and rewatching it on tape, Colorado's O-line absolutely brought it. BYU's defensive line, no matter how bad they looked in that first stanza of this game, as the game progressed, there were still moments where they would get gashed, they'd be out of assignment, all that type of stuff. But it saw progress throughout this game. Keanu Tanavasa was targeted heavily in terms of double and triple teams in this game. Those of you who asked, well, where was Keanu Tanavasa in this game? He's getting swallowed up by that Colorado offensive line. As you could see, number 57 getting double and triple teamed time after time. Would it have been good to see him fight through that a little better? Sure, but it doesn't absolve him or anybody else on this defensive line of how poor a start they had. And it's not just the defensive line. Linebackers out of alignment, overrunning assignments, not keeping contained. That allowed a guy in Caden Salter, who is very good with his feet, to escape contain and to gash BYU. The read option, BYU looked like they weren't necessarily ready for that early on in this game and kept making the bad read, if you want to call it that, in terms of the point man in that scenario. And the other side of it is we saw even some triple option type look stuff from the shotgun from Colorado. They did some direct snap to their running backs. They had a really solid game plan. But as we have learned many a time over the past 2-3 years that Jay Hill has been in charge of this BYU defense, you give him time, he will make the adjustments, especially at halftime. I'm sure that they walked into that locker room and he let them know exactly how he felt about their performance in the first half and then said, okay, that's how I felt. Here's how we're going to go about fixing it. And the number one thing I took away in terms of the second half was BYU was spying Caden Salter with Jack Kelly, with Isaiah Glasker, and they were bound and determined to make sure that he was not going to escape contain if at all possible. There were still moments that he did, and you can see them. They're very evident on tape. But the overall prowess of BYU's defense, their assignments in the second half, they executed them. First half, not so much. It was absolutely brutal to watch for BYU's defense in terms of the assignments and the execution and the contain that you saw in the first half. It was not pretty, and they probably got absolutely ripped at halftime by their coaches. But in the second half, they responded. For the most part, they shut down Colorado, and after the first, 9 minutes and change of that first quarter, Colorado scored a grand total of 7 points the rest of the game. That's talking about turning things around on defense. Quickly on the offense, before we move along to other topics, I thought that BYU's offense moved the ball well all game long, by and large. It wasn't necessarily that they were bottled up by any means. Colorado did come out and they had some moments against BYU's offense. And a guy like Bear Bachmeier, he's a young quarterback. And Kalani Sitake says he's no longer young. He's played 4 games. He is still young and he's still learning on the job. But the one thing I love about Bear Bachmeier is it doesn't seem like the moment's ever too big for him. If you saw the post-game interview he did with BYU TV with Spencer Linton, he got a little choked up talking about how he plays the game of football. And he said, you know what? If I have to dive headlong forward to win the football game, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put my body on the line, was the translation there. And I love that. That's going to endear him to Cougar fans because it's a kid who simply just wants to play winning football. Nearly had 100 yards rushing. It was officially, I think it was like 98 yards in the end because of the loss he took at the tail end of the game as they tried to kill the clock. But I think the bigger point is he is proving to be everything that BYU hoped he was. He's the first quarterback to have played 4 games, had 10-plus touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. And we're talking of all the great quarterbacks in BYU football history. Nobody has done that until now with Bear Bachmeier. The other thing I loved, and he showed it yet again on Saturday night, he knows how to layer the football. And that's a term you may have heard, you may not have. And what that means is the ability to attack all levels of the field, but also he shows the ability to attack it by feathering a ball in there. It's another technical term in terms of lofting it and using a little touch to get the ball where it needs to go. But there's also other times he knows, I got to rear back and I got to fire a fastball at this guy. Some of those slants to a guy like Chase Roberts, who, by the way, ultra reliable, Mr. Reliable Chase Roberts put on another clinic against Colorado. Rewatching that on tape, he had a couple of drops, at least one in particular, but when in doubt, find number 2. He is the ultimate safety blanket for this BYU offense. But Bear Bachmeier, his ability to get the ball where it needs to be and where it needs to go with the right RPMs on it is probably the good term to use, is really, really cool to see because it's a young quarterback who understands that. A lot of quarterbacks take time to learn, okay, I don't need to fire a fastball every time. We're seeing him, I say, like feather it in there, like a little touch passes, but at the same time, he can absolutely fire it with the best of them when needed, and he can zip it. He's got some power on that fastball when needed. The other guy who really stood out to me on tape, well, actually 2 guys offensively, Carson Ryan. I saw it in the stands on Saturday night. He put on a blocking clinic. He was very, very good in the passing game, even better with his blocking in the open field. Carson Ryan, if there is one thing I think he's going to make the NFL for, it is his ability to make blocks in the open field. It was absolutely awesome to see him do his thing. The other guy I was very impressed with was Isaiah Jota. He was going up against his former teammates. Remember, Isaiah committed to Colorado. The first year Coach Prime got to Boulder, spent 1 year in the program, didn't really play much, then transferred, redshirted last year at BYU, and now as a senior, I'm sure he was chomping at the bit going up against some of his former teammates in Colorado, and you saw him chirping with those guys, but his play backed up what I thought was a very, very strong performance by him. So if you're going to talk, you got to back it up. So guys who stood out to me once again, Isaiah Jota, Carson Ryan, Bear Bachmeier. Defensively, Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker continue to be one of, if not the best tandem of linebackers in this entire country. Evan Johnson followed by a very, very strong player of the game, player of the week, national player of the week performance against East Carolina with another strong performance defensively. That hit he laid on the wide receiver from Colorado. Absolutely, talk about walloping the guy. And if you heard the reverse angle, the student section was chanting "Bleep Johnson" as he went and made that play. That's talk about responding to their derogatory terms with force. So really, really impressed with BYU. Oh, also one other guy. I think I wrote it down here. Yeah. Oh, yes. Bodie Schoonover. In terms of defensive lineman, I thought Bodie had one of his finest, if not his finest performance in a BYU uniform. Had a number of big plays in that game in the second half. Talk about assignment sound. I thought he showed very, very well in executing his assignments, at least from what I could see on tape. And it's nice to see that defensive line. As I said, they were all out of sorts early on in this game. Linebackers also not exempted. I think the secondary can also take some blame. But I think that they all responded in force. And the other thing I'll point out is we saw some rotation at nickelback. Tommy Prassis, he struggled against East Carolina. BYU saw him struggle a little bit against Colorado and kind of gave him an early hook, put Tavion Beasley in that spot. And I got to say, until Jonathan Cabella comes back, for my money, I think it's got to be Tavion Beasley's job this week against West Virginia. So just a couple of notes for you guys from my film review. But overall, the thing I liked about BYU is that was the first time they found themselves going uphill, swimming upstream. And to their credit, they found a way. That is a positive thing from this team as they start a trek, hopefully towards playing in Arlington at the end of the regular season. And all you can do is win the games that are put in front of you. You take that 1-0 against Colorado, speaking of the Big 12 play, you're 4-0, you're up to 23 in the national polls. All you got to focus on now is West Virginia this week going 5-0 and continuing to inch up in those national polls and continue to add respect to your name by winning football games along the way. All right, coming up next, who's up, who's down, who shined, who didn't, who essentially fell flat on their face at times in the Big 12 conference. We'll get to all that next in our Big 12 stock report right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot delivers the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. What the best part about it is they are portable. You can take them anywhere, put them in your bag, and have them whenever you need them. You can take it anywhere, get the boost when you need it. And the best part about it is it doesn't matter what you're looking at doing, whether you're out on the golf course or playing a sport, you're trying to study in the library, they've got it all for you guys. So enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store or online at 5hourenergy.com or check them out on Amazon today. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, before we get into the Big 12 stock report, you out there in Cougar Nation are my favorites. And I say that often enough on this podcast. I say thank you for listening to this podcast. But I met, I don't know how many of you at this game. I tried to keep a list of everybody I met. I wrote it down in my notes app on my phone. I did not get everybody written down. So if I skip your name, I truly apologize. But I do appreciate everybody who literally stopped me at times. Some were embarrassed to say hi. Others were up front and bold about it. I love meeting people in Cougar Nation. And I will just say this. I was with my family. My dad was celebrating his birthday. He took all of me and my brothers, my brother-in-law, my brother-in-law's father. We all went to the game together. There was eight of us in all. And we had a great time. I can tell you this much. They learned how much I am recognized out there in the community. One of my brothers remarked at one point, is this seriously how it goes with you? I'm like, sometimes. But here's the thing. I never lose sight of the fact that I am appreciative to every single one of you for your guys' support of this podcast. It's the lifeblood of why I'm able to do what I do on a daily basis. So truthfully, thank you to everybody out there. So let's get through the names real quick. Kobe at Bondcom at the Triad Center in Salt Lake City. I met him last week before I left for Colorado. He says an everydayer. Ben and Clark from Las Vegas. I met them at the Alamo car rental right outside the Denver airport. Clark walked out of the Alamo car rental, walked back in and said, hey, across the lobby, are you Jake Hatch? Clark, you're a 17-year-old. You work and listen to the podcast while you're working down there in the greater Vegas area. Thank you, truthfully, for saying hello. Who else we got here? Christy and her family from Littleton, Colorado. She walked up. I was sitting in my seat there in section 101 at Folsom Field with my dad and my brothers. She walks by, points to me and says, hey, Jake Hatch, I listen to you every single day. She happened to sit right in front of us. Christy, thank you. She listens while she goes to teach out there in Littleton, Colorado. Braden from Eagle Mountain, Tommy from Provo, Cash and Rick Romney. I didn't get where you guys are from. I forgot where it was at. Zach, who met Jason Roberts, the Hepplers from Riverton. A bunch of people on the plane when I was boarding my plane to fly home yesterday said hello and said thanks for everything you do. One of them said, hey, it's good to see you're humble enough to still fly Southwest. Hey, as I said, I'm always happy to travel whichever way I can get to the game. I love going to the game. And I also got to give a special shout out to James from Amarillo, Texas. We have people from Albuquerque, Amarillo, multiple people from Colorado, Utah, who all stopped to say hello. And it shows how diverse and stratified Cougar Nation is out there. But James was a little embarrassed to admit he knew who I was. But his mom said, hey, my son knows who you are. James is a freshman, if I'm not mistaken, out there in Amarillo, Texas, and says he listens literally every single day. So thank you, truthfully, from the bottom of my heart to all y'all for your support of the podcast and for saying hi. It's fun to be out on the road, meeting people and having an opportunity to get to know the people who watch me talking to a camera every night in my, as I say, my closet under the stairs here. So as always, thank you, truthfully, for your support. All right, so that's enough of that. Let's get to the Big 12 stock report. Number one thing from this past week for the Big 12 is this still going to be an uphill fight for respect for the Big 12. We saw Texas Tech rise to number 11 in the rankings. That's positive to have them knocking on the door of the top 10. We only still have 4 teams in the Big 12 that are ranked, BYU included at number 23. Still got to get some respect on the Big 12's name, but the problem is when you have games like TCU and Arizona State, it doesn't help much because Arizona State upsets TCU last Friday. Had a pretty monumental comeback to do it. So credit to the Sun Devils, who are now ranked 25th, so they break back into the top 25. But it's kind of this dog-eat-dog world, and the Big 12's already kind of fighting this respect battle. And it's in some ways, it's not ideal to have a team that's ranked lose to an unranked team, even though Arizona State jumped into 25 or TCU was at 24. It is what it is. Also, stock down, West Virginia. They're going to be limping here into Provo, Utah. Utah absolutely pasted them 48-14, and it wasn't even that close, it felt like. Devin Dampier, back at the peak of his powers, 237 yards, 4 touchdowns passing, and Utah made quick work of the West Virginia Mountaineers. West Virginia is a walking mash unit, and that's no fair to them as they come across the country on a short week now to face BYU Friday night, but nothing BYU can do about it. Our friends at FanDuel installed BYU as a 20-point favorite. It's pretty decided, it looks like, on that front. Stock up for Iowa State as well. And I talk about the respect battle. It's good to see Iowa State taking care of business. They kind of been stuck in that teens area, 14, 15, 16 range most of the season, it feels like. It's good to see Iowa State taking care of business as they downed Arizona. I think Arizona, I'm not 100% sure what to buy on them because they're 3-1. It's the first loss of the season, losing to Iowa State, but they continue to put some pretty good stats. And they've, like I said, they've won 3 games. We'll see what Arizona looks like this week. I think it'll be more of a litmus test to learn about them. Stock up, Cincinnati. That maybe I talked about this being a 4-game gauntlet that BYU is going to go through, starting with Utah. They go Utah at Iowa State bye week, at Texas Tech, home to TCU. And then, oh, by the way, there's a road game at Cincinnati in late November. Cincinnati looks like they may be running into shape. Scott Satterfield may have figured things out. Brendan Sorsby looks like a very, very competent quarterback. And to go to Kansas and win and get to 3-1, watch out for the Bearcats, folks. The stock is up for them. Also, Kansas State getting off the deck a little bit by beating UCF. I did pick against them in my Big 12 Big Picks on Friday because I still feel like Kansas State, something's wrong. But a measure of respect regained there as they kind of find their way forward. And then the final thing on the stock report I will add to this is stock down for Oklahoma State. Now, it seemed like it was inevitable that Mike Gundy was going to be out of a job after you lose to the likes of Tulsa. My brothers and I, we were sitting at our Airbnb on Saturday, and we tuned into the Tulsa-Tulane game, and they were playing in Tulsa, and they did a crowd shot. And if there were more than, in that crowd shot that I saw, more than 50 people in the stands at Tulsa, I'd be surprised. Maybe it was 100, but there was nobody there. My brother turned to me and said, that's who Oklahoma State lost to? I'm like, and now you know why Mike Gundy's out of a job. So I feel awful for Oklahoma State. They actually just fired their defensive coordinator yesterday, Todd Grantham, as well. It's going to be a long slog for Oklahoma State here the rest of the way, but stock is down for them. And here's the thing, Baylor, you only can, as much like BYU this week against a team like West Virginia, who may be overmatched because they don't have the manpower or the talent to match up. And I'm not saying that West Virginia is not a threat to BYU. Any game in the Big 12, they are a threat. Speaking of Big 12 opponents, but when you have teams like this, like in Oklahoma State, who are down a head coach, now a defensive coordinator, doesn't look good for the Cowboys. But like I said, all you can do is hope that they can find a nice replacement for Mike Gundy, because He gave his heart and soul for multiple decades to that program, and anybody who replaces him, they're going to have a lot of questions to answer along the way. So there you go. That's my Big 12 stock report. Anybody I missed, players, performances, and the like. It's a little tougher, I will admit this, when I go on the road to keep track of it all in terms of individual player output. So it's more team specific this weekend. But as always, welcome your feedback. Drop them in the comments below. Reach out to us via social media or even email the show, lockedonbyu@gmail.com. Let us know stock up, stock down, or somebody I may have missed out on in my stock report. Coming up next, though, it's the prospect report. I had a chance. I was obviously not at a high school game this past weekend, but I did a double dip talking to Bodie Sparrow from Davis a couple of weeks back. I held on to the interview because I wanted you guys to hear from him about his recruitment by BYU and obviously Utah. This is a kid who's blowing up. He is going to have offers, and he's got a lot of offers already nationwide. Big opportunity for him in terms of being a hometown prospect. Could BYU add him to the recruiting hall? You'll hear from him on how things are looking on that front coming up next. And we'll also talk BYU basketball recruiting. A top-tier prospect who's got an interesting background and an interesting connection to another program not named BYU made an official visit to Provo, but it was his last official visit, as I understand it. Has that stack up for guys like Kevin Young and company? We'll get into all that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by a new old friend, but they've changed their name. It's Quo. One of the tools that help makes a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly known as OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard us talk about here on the podcast, just with a new name. Here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table, especially when you're a business owner. Every customer conversation counts. You need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. They are the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying two phones or relying on a landline and obviously answering those at all hours. Built-in AI agent is a game changer. Can answer after-hours phone calls, capture leads, and keep your business moving forward, even when you might be off the clock. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly OpenPhone. Get started for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at Quo. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. That's Quo.com/lockedoncollege to get started today. And if you got an existing number with another service, Quo will port them over for no charge. Quo, no missed calls, and of course, no missed customers. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel has got an offer for you with the NFL season here. It's an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers, you bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets used across the app or on the website. The best part is it gives you a myriad of different ways to play. You can build parlays, player props, even follow live lines during the games, and anything beyond that. Futures, bets, over-unders. They got every option for you guys. Makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And whether you're just a casual fan or love diving deep into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better along the way. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com or download the app today to get started. That's $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits, and it's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope you all are doing fantastic out there in Cougar Nation. Another plug for you guys to join the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Get the inside scoop on all things BYU sports. Have one-on-one conversations with myself, and also just have some fun supporting the podcast if you want to add a little extra cheddar as it is. The best part is it's pretty inexpensive, just $5 a month. Now, the best part about it is you get a full 2 weeks, 14 days free if you join the Locked On Cougars Insider Group today. Take you all the way essentially through the rivalry week, getting ready for BYU and Utah. If you sign up today, join us on Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Link is in the show notes below, or reach out to us and get you squared away as a newly minted member of the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. All right. Before we go on today's show, let's talk BYU prospects. Now, this past weekend, BYU basketball hosted Austin Gooseby. Now, if that name sounds familiar, you must be a Texas football fan. Why do I say that? Well, Austin Gooseby is from Melissa, Texas, which is a suburb. Is it still a suburb of DFW? Yeah, it is. It's a ways out, but it is still a suburb of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. They have built an incredible football stadium, but Austin Gooseby plays basketball. And you're asking, okay, Jake, what is the connection here to Texas? Well, his brother Trevor is actually a starting offensive lineman for the Texas Longhorns. Austin Gooseby is rated a 97 in terms of 4-star prospects, so knocking on the door 5-star status by 24/7 Sports. The composite rating, which includes On3, ESPN, and the like, has him as a bona fide 5-star prospect, and they actually rank him as the number 5 combo guard in the entire country, number 24 overall. 24/7 Sports, for what it's worth, their national ranking for him is 19th nationally. Well, he made an official visit to BYU this past weekend, and the Cougars are swinging for the fences with this young man, much like they have done with a lot of the other top-tier prospects of late. Texas, where his brother's playing offensive line for the football program, as guys like Robbie McCombs have written. They grew up a Texas family, speaking of Texas Longhorn fans. So obviously, Texas is going to be an interesting one to track. Duke is in the mix here. John Shire, never out of a race, it feels like, for any top-tier prospect he's got his eyes on. Baylor, just down the road of I-35, if he wants to go play for the Baylor Bears. There are a lot of big offers out there, but BYU hosted him on his last official visit of these visits. He visited Texas on September 5th, Duke on August 27th, Baylor I'm seeing September 18th, and Miami also August 22nd, but September 26th, this past weekend, BYU hosted him. Now, you're probably wondering, why wouldn't he visit on a football weekend? Well, he has made other unofficial visits to BYU and has seen the environments at the Marriott Center. He's seen LaVell Edwards Stadium. And I'm telling you, this would be just another one of those home run type commitments for Kevin Young should he pull it off. This is the type of guy you need in your program to replace guys like Richie Saunders, AJ DeBonsa, etc. on the perimeter. He's a combo guard of the highest order. Adam Finkelstein from 24/7 Sports says there aren't many players or certainly guards in the country that can match the sheer tools of Austin Gooseby. He has very good backcourt size at 6'5", long arms with a 6'9" wingspan and big hands. He's also got a bouncy vertical athlete, a layup maker with his dominant right hand, has soft natural hands and touch. And his best attribute may be his feel for the game. He cuts well, passes well, and instinctively knows how to play in ways that allow him to make quick and efficient decisions with the basketball. Who does that sound like on this year's team that just joined the BYU basketball program? Oh, yeah, guy AJ DeBonsa. If AJ goes out and becomes the type of player that I think we all expect him to be, why wouldn't a guy like Austin Gooseby look at this and say, hey, that's what I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of a system that accentuates every part of my game, allows me to both be playmaker and overall star. If I need to take over a game, totally cool with that. But if I need to be the Robin to somebody else's Batman in a game, that's also something that you need to obviously monitor here. As I said, it is going to be very, very tough sledding for BYU to pull off a recruiting win like this. But can we really count out Kevin Young in this day and age? That's the thing about this is I am inclined from years and years and years of watching the likes of Duke, etc., steal away top-tier prospects, guys like Frank Jackson going all the way back to now BYU assistant Chris Burgess that have pulled off these recruiting wins of top-tier LDS prospects because Austin is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as I understand it. For years, I kind of been like jaded. Okay, these guys are going to win. Kevin Young has changed that dynamic completely. I actually look at this and say, okay, why couldn't BYU pull off this recruiting win? That's, I think, the big difference here of the two, and we'll see how it all goes. But I think it's, in some ways, actually a very cool thing that he made his last official visit to Provo, as BYU will have, I guess, the last say or the last memories of his official visits in his mind as he now goes in to make his decision. But as I understand it, there's no official timeline on when he will make said decision. So TBD on when you might hear anything on that front. All right, before we go, also, I need to let you guys hear from Bodie Sparrow. Now, Bodie is a football player from Davis High School. He is a 3-star prospect, according to 24/7 Sports, with an 89 rating. But I'm telling you, the next time they re-rank this in the 27 class, because he's a member of the 2027 recruiting class, who's a year out, he's going to be a 4-star prospect, and he's going to have offers up and down the United States of America. He's got a number of Power 5 offers already. Arizona, Arizona State, Arkansas, Boise State, Cal, UCLA, Tennessee, Oregon, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Illinois, Washington. He has got offers from some of the heaviest hitters in college football, and that offer list is only going to get longer and longer. But the fact that he's a local prospect, obviously there's a lot of interest in him from both BYU and Utah's side of things. I had a chance to catch up with him in the aftermath of the win over American Fork a couple of weeks back. You'll hear him make reference to visiting Utah actually the next day when they got demolished by Texas Tech. I'm sure that left an interesting, feeling for him attending that game. But he talks a lot about his relationships with BYU coaches, what the dynamic between being recruited by multiple programs for both playing offense and defense, because he's a true two-way prospect as a safety prospect as well as a wide receiver. Which way does he prefer to go in college? Well, he explains all that and more in this exclusive one-on-one conversation right here on Locked On Cougars.
How have you been able to be so effective playing both ways?
Yeah, I take a lot of pride in it. Play both ways. Played every snap tonight, but I love the opportunity. I wouldn't want it any other way. My freshman year I didn't, and I just love being on the field at all times.
So do you hope maybe the next level to be like a Travis Hunter type where you play both ways all the time?
Some schools flirt with the idea. Obviously, I would love it. Of course, would love it, but we'll see what happens.
Now, obviously, you still got some time in your recruiting cycle because you're in the 2027 class, but what's recruiting been like to this point, and how does it go in season for you, I guess is the best question to ask.
Yeah, things have been ramping up a little bit. Just the last couple of weeks, a couple schools have offered me, and it's been great. I'm not really focusing on it too much, just focusing on like Friday nights and worry about our team right now, but definitely excited to get out to some games this spring and check out and get to know these coaches a little better and build relationships.
What's your relationship with the coaches in state like, though?
Yeah, Utah and BYU are both great. I'm gonna go to the Utah. I'll be at the Utah game tomorrow in the morning. BYU's great. They're both awesome. I both have great things to say about them.
Who are the main coaches that are recruiting for those two?
Utah. I'll just start with Utah. Would be Scally and Coach Simon, the receiver coach. They do a great job of all of the coaches reaching out to me. Just the other day, I got letters from every single coach on the staff. So shout out to those guys. And BYU, they're great. I probably talked to Coach Hill the most, and yeah, they probably want me more on the defensive side of the ball, but we'll see what happens too. Fesu is the one that offered me the receivers coach, so they're all great.
What's the feedback you get from them in season, if anything?
They're great with staying in contact with me throughout the season. They all wish me good lucks and stay in contact, and it really goes a long way. And I appreciate it.
Now, Jay Hill in particular has been around the state for a long time at Weber and the like. What's the relationship with him like in particular?
Yeah, Jay's awesome. He knew my dad from he was at Weber State, so there's a connection there. Yeah, he's been great. I got great things to say about him. I love him as a coach, love his energy, and excited to get to know him even more.
So what are your goals the rest of the way this year? Do you just want to make a run at state? Because you talk about the fact you guys came down to the South to prove a point.
This year, our biggest chip on the shoulders. Last 2 years, we've lost in the quarters both years, and we need to make a change this year. We know we have the guys too. We're confident in each other, and we just got to keep taking it game by game.
Well, Bodie, thanks for the time, man.
Of course. Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
There you have it. Big thank you to Bodie Sparrow, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But I think that this is a kid that BYU would absolutely love to have. Jay Hill, I think would do special things with a kid like this at safety. But you heard him talk about the fact he's not opposed to playing both ways at the college level. Now, very few guys are capable of pulling it off, because I kind of refer to the Travis Hunter thing because he's the only one who's really done it successfully of late. I know some Utah guys are trying to do it, guys like Smith Snowden, Jackson Benet, and who else did they have going up there? I don't remember who else, but it's a tough thing to pull off. But what I have seen from Bodie Sparrow, because he's been on the scene literally since he was a freshman 3 years ago, if there's a kid that can do it from the Utah high school ranks, it feels like it's Bodie. But we'll ultimately see how it shakes out. And a big thank you to him for taking some time after that win to talk with myself about the win, about his recruitment, and a whole lot more right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. All right, that's going to do it for today's edition of the show. A little longer. Obviously, had a lot of news to get through, but thank you, truthfully, out there. Big thank you to all of you for saying hi out there on the road. I hope to be back on the road soon. We'll see if I can pull off another road trip this season. I know that as soon as BYU gets bowl eligible, I plan to travel to whichever bowl game BYU plays in. So at least at that on that front, I can kind of say with some authority, I will plan on visiting with Cougar Nation in the Wild again at the bowl. But I'd love to get out back on the road at some point during Big 12 play, and we'll see if we can pull that off. But once again, truthfully, a big thank you to all of you for your support of the podcast. I just had to drop my phone there. But a big thank you for supporting the show. As always, thank you for being everydayers. And until tomorrow, come back and be an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.